Hi, good evening. Yes, welcome to the official November Wood Boar or Wood Pig Month forecast. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes. That's why I also tried to come in a couple of minutes earlier so that we can do the usual hellos, the warm-up, the grouping together of our collective FB Live energy before we get started for the actual outlook itself. Now, of course, last week, last week, not as far back as last year. Last week, I did a special, which is essentially how to finish strong for the current 2024 Wood Dragon year. And of course, by doing that, also to get ahead in the Wood Snake year for 2025, right? And of course, a lot of it has to do with this month of November. So November is very crucial in terms of maximizing growth overall, right? Not just for now, but also to connect to 2025, and also because 2025 overall, as you may have heard us say, you've heard us talk about in terms of some of the sharings that we've done, some of the workshops that Jessie has conducted recently, and of course with the sharings that we share, right? It's not so rosy in terms of its, its overall direct chi from the universe, right? Of course, which affect all of us, yeah? So, of course, more details on that later. But speaking of details, last session, I was encouraging all of you, if you regularly actually already follow the updates, you follow basically the Facebook Lives, the posts that I do, right? And then, of course, with the increasing information sharing overall through the reels and so on and so forth, right? So actually, if you can follow my public page, right, the actual Kongyu page, which is one of the platforms which this is currently going live on, even though it's cross-posted, right? So if you can follow me on my actual public page, that will be really, really awesome, because we do need that metrics for, like some other things in terms of when people search my name and so on and so forth, right? So I have that request, that humble request, that if you can follow me officially on Kongyu, the public page, that would be really appreciated, yeah? So just gonna give it another minute. It's already 10 p.m. 9 p.m., sorry, thinking ahead. And just get started with the outlook and the forecast for the November Wood Boar month in a minute, okay? So, but in the meantime, you can help me share this, right? Share this on your timeline. You can help me basically, get the info out there. First of all, of course, the more the merrier when it comes to having all of you basically with me today, right, on this page, right? And then also, if you can help me share it out, if you think the information, all these metaphysics knowledge, the astrology, the monthly outlook and all that can benefit the people in the timeline, then of course that would be also really, really awesome if you could help me share this feed out, yeah? So before we actually get into the content of the day, okay, and just want to ask you, how has your October Wood Dog month been, right? Of course, it's the clash month of the entire year. It's basically the culmination of the entire year, right? That is what we're ending right now. In fact, today, we have just entered the brand new month. So I am personally very relieved, because October has just been crazy. Of course, it's been full of blessings as well overall, right? Because we have been really urged to look really, really deep, right? It is the opening of Pandora's box that I have mentioned many, many times, right? And it's, of course, where things occur, things pop up, right? And of course, things have to emerge, especially when it comes to issues that we have been pressing down, right? So of course, with the tomb clash between the annual dragon and then with the monthly dog, right, we have the opportunity to clash it all out. And of course, for us, for me personally, right, the physicality part of it, right, was quite taxing for this particular week, as we basically finish off the dog month and start the boar month today, right? So some things happen at home in terms of in terms of things breaking down. Our water heater broke down, and after that, of course, somebody came and messed up the entire system. So we're still actually, in a way, reeling from that. But at least we have something up and running. But it's really just taken a lot of energy from that perspective. So I'm sure for you, you probably have things occurring throughout the month as well, yeah? But of course, some of the other amazing blessings that we've had also, one of it that comes to mind, of course, was the amazing, meaningful Soul's Journey in Nepal, which was like in the middle of the month, right? So that was That was very, very, very meaningful indeed, yeah? So once again, if you just joined me, this is the official November wood boar or wood pig forecast, a very important month for us to take note of and to really, really maximize, okay? So if you've just joined me, and if you're new to the information here, if you're new to myself, maybe even new to Soil Trinity and Jessie Lee, please do like and share the feed. And then also, one humble request here is that if you can actually officially follow me on my public page, Kong Yu, of which one of the platforms is being used to stream today's forecast. Okay, so follow me officially there. Of course, all our information will sometimes overlap here and there, but we do have our own sort of emphasis in terms of the information that we share, and it's not always the same, right? And also it is in different formats, shall we say, yeah? Quick hello to Alexis Wong. Hopefully, right, your throat chakra really, really heals, okay? Right, hi to Sirius Bright, Felicia Chin, Laurie from Japan, Chi Chi from Australia, right, is here with us as well, okay? So let's get started, okay? Nicole was like, okay, start. So she put this thing up like 3 minutes ago. Okay, so we're now officially into the last quarter of the Chinese astrological year of the Wood Dragon, right? Of course, on the solar calendar basis from the Chinese astrology perspective, yeah? So now we're into the last season of all, the winter season, okay? Literally, it doesn't matter whether you are in the north or south hemisphere, right? The November pig month kickstarts the regular annual winter season, right? And this year it is, of course, the wood pig or Yi Hai month itself. So first of the 3 months of winter, and it is the growth related month. So that's why it is really powerful, right? Every November is very important in terms of connecting to and establishing the maximum sort of growth capacity that we can, right? And will be maximized, and when we go into the prosperous wood element in spring, right? So before that, of course, it's the growth of wood, which starts with the pig animal sign. So that's why in terms of connecting year to year, this is really one of the most important transitions of the year. Of course, those of you who are familiar with Bazi and astrology, you know that the rat also connects directly with the ox, right? In a different way, right? That's more about dissolution. That's more about dissolving and letting go so that we can begin anew, right? So that's the cusp of the rat and the ox, right? Or zi and chou. But here it is the connection of growth overall, right? So even, let's say we don't talk about how important this is for this particular year, okay? But annually, when you have this transition, it's actually one layer of the energies that we need to take note of, because when we start strong in November, right, then we have the opportunity. Start strong means we basically put in the work, the energy, just focus the energy into it, right, as a leading up to the next year. Then we will have more to basically leverage on when we get to the actual year itself. And don't forget, right, every solar year from the Chinese solar calendar perspective will start with the tiger. That's why it is important, right? So we connect to the tiger first by the seeding stage and the growing stage, water producing wood stage of the previous year's pig month. So that's a very, very important tip, right? In case you've not heard that, and this is something that I can share with you as well, yeah? So in this case, of course, is the Yi Hai month, which is even more significant, right? Because it transitions the first year of period 9 into the second year of period 9, right? And the transition, in fact, starts today, right? Of course, energy works on a cyclical fashion, so it is never like an actual transition date, but there will be a flow into it, and then there will be a growth, and then of course there will be a waning. It starts to lessen in terms of its energy, and then there will be the overlapping into the next energy. So of course that's the smooth cycle of how energy flows, okay? But the wood boar month, right, is very important, and of course the wood boar itself contains, interestingly enough, the theme of 2025, right? In case you saw last week's special Facebook Live, I talked a lot about it, but of course I'll recap it a little bit as well, yeah? So the theme of 2025, which is basically the wood snake, right, already appears in the boar month of this year. So that's why it is even more significant. It doesn't happen every year like that, even though, like I said, for every year, if we emphasize a bit of the connection between the current year's pig month and then maximizing the efforts, right? The water producing wood, which is basically growth, right, energy into it, then of course we'll be able to tap into more energy come February, which kickstarts the following year. So that's one layer. Then second layer of all, not every year you will have the stem of the month, right, being reflecting or reflected here in which basically is the stem of the entire year for next year, right, the theme of the year. So again, more about that, but again, no coincidence, right, first to second year of period 9 tends to be like that, and every cycle of 5 years also probably will have that same transition point, okay? But for this one, take note of this, yeah? Of course, in the boar itself, again, we have a lot of strong water, which is the main chi in the boar, and of course, carrying a seed of jiawood, which is basically like a sapling, right? So these days I describe it like that. It's a seed of some sort, but I think if you think about it as a coconut, right? A sapling in the form of a coconut that is floating in water, and then it just has to latch on, right? And the latching on, of course, can also happen already, okay? That's coming up in the upcoming slides. Then you will see, again, the connection there, right? So the water is ready to grow the sapling, and of course, it will grow into its full fruition in February when jiawood, yangwood energy, which is the core energy in the tiger, is at its maximum for the year, right? So that's why November is very important as a whole. And of course, some other details of a boar or high, right? The earthly branch itself, the animal sign, right? So it starts winter, if you look at it from a seasonality perspective, right? And then it carries with it already the annual theme for 2025, Yi or Yinwood. And that's very significant. I'll explain more in a moment. And this is, of course, the year breaker, right? It's the month, but it's actually the year breaker to 2025 because Yi Hai is clashing Yi Si, and that's why it awakens it, it brings it up, right? And to some extent, you can look at a clash as one way of jolting and activation. So that's something that is usable, right, in terms of not just astrology, but also in terms of certain feng shui activations as well, right? It is one way to basically kickstart action by clashing. So that's why a clash is or should never really ever, right, be seen as like favorable or unfavorable outright, okay, because there is value in this sudden jolt action, yeah. And then because it's mirroring, right, the theme, which is basically of 2025 Yi Si, so it is even more significant and tells us a story that, look, this is a point of transition already, okay? So, very important, right? Hi, Nicholas, right, thanks for saying hi there. If you just joined me, welcome to the official forecast of the November Wood Boar month, which actually starts today, right, November the 7th. So, please help me like and share this forecast and get more people to join live. That is something that will be really awesome in terms of having the energy to do this. And of course, if you're watching this post live also, please help me share as well. Yep, that will be appreciated. So as I was talking about the precursor, right, to the snake year. So if you look at the wood snake year, right, just like this year, right, there is always, of course, the heavenly stem, which is what I call the theme, right, and the pure energy from heaven, which is always a blessing, even though it might not always feel like it, yeah? So that is Yinwood or Yiwood. Then, of course, the animal sign itself is the whole thing is the year's energy, but the animal sign is the one that connects to us from an earthly perspective, right? Because we are the component of experiencing earthly life, right? So, and that's why when we master the challenges, right, and we learn the lessons of the animal sign, then things become an opportunity, right? There'll be more and more opportunities can be directly translated in an energetic fashion from the energy, right? But we have to learn it. So the more that we've overcome it, if we've completely learned the lesson, then whatever that comes as a reoccurrence of the same animal sign, in this case the snake, it's always going to be an opportunity. Yeah, but until we get to the I have learned the lessons stage, then of course we can also benefit from this by looking at it from a different perspective and looking at things more of lessons to be learned and also then opportunities to be harnessed. Because, you know, if you learn 50% of the lesson, if you mastered it up to the 50% level, then already 50% of the opportunities can be gathered. That's one. And then second of all, with awareness and with a different perspective shift and mindset shift, then of course, when we see things more as an opportunity, then things will be more of an opportunity as they come, right? As opposed to having a more negative mindset overall, okay? And then, of course, in the snake, this is also very interesting, right? Because every year is slightly different. And in this case, we're moving, like I mentioned last week. So if you've not seen the special last week, which is also on this page and across the other pages as well, right? Please check out that full FB Live that I did last week as well, right? To talk more in the more layers of the snake year itself, yeah? But the snake itself, as a growth animal sign, carries with it Ping or Yang fire as main chi. And then, of course, interestingly enough, it also carries with it the seed of Keng metal as the growth chi. And then, of course, like many other signs except for the pig, right, it contains a trace of earth that is still lingering around, right? And that's why the pig itself is very interesting. The boar, right, even though it's not an emphasis for today's topic, but one layer of the information to look into it is that it does not carry any earth. So this is basically having no residual earth, which means the theme of preparing to start again, right, is even more emphasized. And that's why it's very important, an animal sign, when it comes to starting a year, right? In this case, we're talking about starting a year, which is 2025, the snake year, right? But we have to be very mindful and wise and maximize the preceding pig month. That's again, you know, like why I keep talking about it this past few weeks, yeah? It's very important because they're of that direct energy connection, because it's starting over fresh without any residual of the previous cycle, right? In this case, of course, you can talk about it as a cycle of months, which form a year. But on the larger perspective, 12 years forming a cycle is the same thing, right? So every time we move through the 12-year cycle, we're supposed to basically discard earth at the end of the cycle, which is with the year of the pig. Okay, but on a more micro perspective, this is with the month of the pig. Yeah, very important. So the November Boar month is super important on those layers that I already mentioned. And then, of course, because we have yang water growing hidden yang wood, right? So it's like basically the seawater floating a coconut sapling. Okay, that's the one way of looking at it. But on a more general sense, it would just be a lot of water producing the potential of wood, right? So that's why it is one of my favorite animal signs overall. Okay, right, if I had to like choose. And then also because I've been emphasizing a lot with myself, and then with, of course, the feng shui analysis, the audits that I do, and particularly with the Bazi readings that I do, especially with the Bazi Premium, because now it's like the season, right, when we anticipate next year. So, and you see as well, so we have yang water, okay, and water, of course, grows wood generally. So yang water, or water in general, not only grows yang wood, but it grows yin wood. Because, look, right, it's the same, isn't it? You still need to feed, you need to basically fuel, right? Give power and energy to grow the wood, and water is the main ingredient to that, right? So it is also supporting yin wood. And here also it's very interesting, and again, it really emphasizes the theme that I've been talking about in terms of the importance of this month, right, of November. The yang water, or water in general, yes, it supports yang wood, but it also supports yin wood. And at the same time, as many of you already know, right, whether or not you're students or practitioners or Bazi, you've heard a lot of information that's been shared these days that yang wood will also be the pillar of support to yin wood, right? That's the interaction, the symbiotic action between, or relationship between yang wood and yin wood, right? Not every of the other elements react that way. They're all very unique in their way. Like yang water and yin water are interchangeable. Yang wood and yin wood are not interchangeable, but they have a codependency possibility there, right? So that's why the yi wood, or the yin wood, which is emerging now, is also the theme of 2025, and it's also being supported by the month of the Boar. That's why, again, adding to this particular emphasis here that I've been talking about, right? And then now, more details on this when we look into this interaction. Now, every month, right, if you really want to understand it, my personal opinion as a practitioner is that you must always correlate it to the year. Now, it's not the same for a year. So if you're looking at a year, you're analyzing Tai Shui as a pillar, right? You can see a lot of information from that, and then you can whack it left, right, and center. That's what I like to use, or hack it. You hack the entire pillar left, right, and center. You understand every possible interaction to it, right? And then it can stand alone like that. But when you're reading a month pillar of any year, to get a full picture or a clearer picture, right, or a deeper level of the picture, or a more higher perspective to things, always correlate it to the year, right? So that's why when I do this monthly forecast, I will always, okay, how does this month stack up with the year, right? So for now, okay, how does this, it's not wood dog, sorry, it's wood dragon. It's the copy-paste error from the previous presentation, yeah? November in wood dragon year, not wood dog, okay? Okay, so I got the year correct, and November is correct as well, yeah? So we have the seed for growth, okay, which I already mentioned, right, which is basically in which is the jia wood, hiding in the pig, okay? And then, of course, we want to grow and develop it, and we want to do that now so that we can push for a best start, a more powerful start, a more vibrant and robust start come the month of the Tiger, which is February, which then kicks off the entire year for next year, right? So that's why we want to do that. So that's the thing. What else can we see from this? Now, of course, the boar and the dragon do not directly correlate, right? There's no combination, there's no clash, there's no whatever. But, of course, if you read the energetic relationship, right, how does the chi or the basket of chi basically affect each other? Then, of course, we have the yin wood now, because now yin wood emerges, okay? So a couple of things. One is that it is, like I said in the previous slide, right, that it now can find, okay, the support of the yang wood. Now, of course, because yang wood has been the theme for this particular year, right, so it's nothing new. We've been growing it, we've been maximizing it, and that's why it was chosen as the sector to be activated, East 1, which is basically jia wood, right? If you've been growing it, you've been growing it all this year with your own effort, okay, with a boost and support from feng shui activation and so on, then now it is like, wow, okay, right? A robust energy, right? Not so much like you think of it as just a big tree, but it's an energy, it's an active energy. It's basically like what last week I mentioned, tiger, right? It's on the pounce, it's ready to go, it's very energetic, it's got a lot of momentum, right? It's got a lot of that momentum and drive and so on and so forth, right? So that is the core energy that we're talking about when we talk about jia wood, right? It's not always just a big tree, right? But if you look at it from a more overall energetic way, then this is how I would describe the imagery of the energy itself, yeah? And it's just like Geng metal, you know? You talk about Geng and Jia, opposite of each other, but they're the most active masculine energies of the 10 heavenly stems, right? Geng metal, just to share, right, it's not just a sword. How can it just be a sword? It's so limited, isn't it? But it's the decisive, forceful action. That is the energy of yang metal, right? So that's why, look at it from this perspective, it makes a lot more sense, and you can dive really deeper into the energy and how that shifts, because you cannot create it, right, energy, but you can shift its form, and it's the form shifting that basically is very exciting, and it creates and it is the foundation towards all of these studies, right, astrology and so on, right? So back to this. So the yin wood now, okay, has the support of the jia wood already, right? Because we're not just waiting for the tiger month or waiting for next year, because we already have jia wood the entire year. So now it starts to creep out. Why? Because the dragon is the one that contains the kui and the yi, right? The dragon itself is the finality, it's the maturity of wood overall, right? Because you move from tiger, rabbit to the pig, prosperous, then dragon is the maturity of wood. It's the, you know, people call it the graveyard, right? Where it is basically waning, but importantly, it is kept in there, right? So the yi wood that has been kept together with the kui water, then of course last month was the clash, right? So last month already clashed, and then of course it revealed. So we come from a clash which hides the yi wood, the yin wood, and then it reveals on top with the pig. So again, emerging and giving a head start, welcoming the yi wood that is in the snake of 2025 Taisoi. That is how important it is, yeah? So, and then this yi wood already now is already clashed out. So, it depends on the strength and of your jia wood, your yang wood. So, if you... See, I'm so excited. If your jia wood is like, you have been maximizing the growth of it, you've been just following along. Like, for example, I shared in my last sharing, I said, you know, I feel it. I feel, you know, and I can understand why people would say, you know, like we talk about emphasizing and even activating East 1 and Jia, right? But it's not like, wow, it's so comfortable, it's so rewarding, like directly rewarding per se, right? It's not, because it's basically triggering action, it's triggering movement, growth, right? And then a lot of times movement and growth, while it is important and the more we embrace it, the more comfortable it gets, but on the overall, it's not a super comfortable feeling, because you cannot sit back and relax. You have to keep going and moving and take care of things, right? So that's why the more that's been done this year, since late last year, right? The whole 10 months, 12 months of maximizing jia wood, then of course this jia wood is robust and strong so that the yi wood now can very nicely climb on it. It's got this very powerful pillar of support. So the less you have done, the less discomfort you have embraced, the less you have grown, this yi wood will have a lot less to leverage on now that it's appeared, and especially when it's basically the theme of 2025, right? Then you would have less overall to leverage with. You would just have less energy that is or was or has been invested in it. So that's why it's important, right? So one is the pillar that directly supports, which is the jia wood of this year, which we again want to maximize as much as we can in this pig month so that the jia wood can be very strong and robust in February, the month of the tiger, right? So the more that we've invested energy into it, the more robust and strong this pillar will be. That's why it's important in 2024, right? And then with the sideways growth, right? The branching out, right? The lateral, right? Growth will be much more enabled, because yi wood is all about that. It's about, in a way, the fine-tuning, the sideways exploration. You can also say diversification, right? But it depends on how robust the jia wood has been, right? Now that it is sprouted out from the dragon per se. So it's very fascinating, right? And that's why, like I said at the beginning, right, this is actually, like, I'm very excited to share. All right, so a quick hi first before we move on. Julie Vo from California, right, Julie? Right, Rebecca Wong is here, Jessie Fu, right? And of course, Shinjal, hi to you, Shinjal. Hope you had a great time in Nepal, and also the following through energy of the month of the dog, okay? So, moving on to this, yeah, so we talked about this perspective a lot already, right? That we're basically, in a way, we're not only seeding growth, but we're maximizing growth energy overall, right? So that we can have a good start to 2025, which on the overall, as you've heard, right, is not a supportive year, because the monthly pillars are all in clash. So we cannot directly connect to the universe, right, in terms of that perspective, yeah? So, this is again another layer, right? I just want to quickly go through it. This is, I talked about this in more detail in the previous sharing, right, on maximizing the rest of 2024 so that we can get a head start into 2025, right? So, and then we see again some coloring here of what I just explained just now, right? So when we get, of course, beginning more and more, and when we roll into the full year itself of 2025, the year of the snake, right? Then of course the clash of it is the pig, right? So that's why it is not so accessible in a direct way. On a deeper level, on a higher level, I would also say that if you really want to activate it, as in you want to activate the snake, right, and you want to maximize its energy, then of course you have to shine, or how to say, you have to activate it, or you can as one option, right, at a higher level. Of course, this probably needs to be taken as information only, right? But in practical terms and how to use it, of course, it's not so beginner friendly, right? Because you can heighten the energies of the snake by clashing it with the pig, right? And normally in a clash of two different animal signs, it's harder for me to say this, right? You can activate it with a clash. Well, of course, there's one way to do it, but to do it successfully and accurately to fit a particular reason and goal, well, that's something else, right? You need to be, experienced in it, and you need to have your own perspective and understanding towards it, right? But in this case, because of the common understanding, right? If you know a bit of astrology, you've been following Patsi enough, then you know that people always say generally that the pig and the snake's clash is the weakest. It's the less impactful. It's the least real of the clashes, right? Any of these terms, right? And if you think about it from the terms of the imagery, right? Pig's main energy is basically the yang water, a surface, the water that is a pool which forms some sort of surface, the sea, lake, a pool, whatever it is, right? It's got a surface of reflection which then is able to enhance the sunlight, right? Again, I think if you've been following metaphysics and astrology long enough, you will have understood and learned this info and you have heard of it already, right? So that's why the reflective ability of the pool that's in the pig and the boar is able to enhance the snake, right? So that's why, right? So that's why we see this again as a correlation, not only that activates the year early, but it also enhances it, right? And then second of all, where the month that we want to connect to, which kickstarts the year, is February, right? February 2025 in this transition year, right? And then we know that when we get to February, the pillar is basically Earth Tiger, right? Wu Yin, right? So it is the yang wood, the jiao wood that we've been talking about, emphasizing so much, sitting nicely under the Wu Earth, which is like a rock in the very least, or a mountain, if you look at it from a perspective, right? So it's got to push through, it's got to sprout through the Earth, right? Because the Earth is the one that is laying right on top of it, right? And then, of course, the tiger is 5 yellow, right? The 5 yellow is flying into the northeast, right? Transitioning slowly now, and then with winter solstice, we will have another level, and then once we get into February 3rd, February 4th, it will be fully there, right? So that's why also, right, it clues us in that the tiger, the jiawood, can be as powerful as the emperor, or the 5 yellow in this case. Now, of course, from a practical perspective, it's the sector itself, or the feng shui perspective, the chi that is in the particular sector from an earth lot perspective, right, in relation to annual feng shui, right, then there's the restrictions to it, and there's the warnings that come with it, right, that sector, northeast per se, right, better not touch, or rather it is challenging to activate, very difficult to use, any of those terms, which is then of course true, right? Then having said that, right, there is nothing as powerful as the 5 yellow. So again, the tiger having been visited by the 5 yellow flying star next year also tells a story, right? Your jiawood, which has been the theme for the entire year, okay, in 2024, which is going to be also triggered and activated in this month of the pig, and then after that it will reach maximum growth, right? Its prosperous stage in February can be as strong as that, or it could not be. Right, so that's why it's a function of what we have done so far in 2024 and what we will be doing, especially in this month of November, that will determine how powerful is this jiawood that is going to find its prosperous energy in the tiger of February 2025. Yeah. Okay, so now let's look at other perspectives of how to fine-tune the energy of the month. As I've already said, that is the base energy, right? It's very important, right, in terms of the potential to grow, the potential to develop, which is related to the growth energy of water-feeding wood. That means you're putting effort growing this one thing, then growing that thing, right, and then developing this, right? So it's not a fruition energy, right, but it is a developmental energy at its core. But what else can color this in terms of the types of activities or types of things that we need to take care of, right, in the context of growth overall. So November's 15th full moon, right, tells another layer of the energy, right? So this full moon is mainly the 15th, right? And then for like, I think Malaysia time zone on eastwards, it's like a very early morning thing. But overall, it points to November 15th evening as the night or the evening that if you look out there in a clear sky, then you'll be able to see the moon shining very brightly. Why brightly? Because it is a super moon, right? It's the last of the 4 consecutive super moons that we've had since August, September, October, November, correct? Right? And it is the second one, right? Second super moon where we had the enhancement of the lunar energy. That means our lunar energy that we feel is enhanced, right? Why? Because, right, we kidnapped. The Earth kidnapped an asteroid, right, called the 2024 PT5, right, which then started to join the orbit, okay, our orbit as in Earth, right, as a second moon of sorts, right? So that's been happening ever since September 20-something, I believe, right? Then, of course, with October's full moon and now November's full moon, it is heightened with this presence of this asteroid, which is acting like a second moon, right? And then overall, okay, I will talk briefly about the what they call the transits from the Western astrology perspective, what planets move to which signs from the Western astrology perspective. But those signs, they have different names. They have Taurus, Libra, Scorpio, whatever, but it's the same as our Chinese 12 animal signs, just that the cut-off date is in between, right, of our both systems in between each other, okay? But with transits, I find it's very useful because then you can really tell a different layer of the story, right? Because the transits are based on the planetary position, and the animal signs or the horoscope signs are just one segment of it, right? If you look at it from that perspective, that's how to understand it. And then it becomes very valuable because we know the planet's actual position. Whereas if we just refer in a calendar, right, which is the way most Chinese astrology is coded, right? It is based in some sort of reference calendar, which is written hundreds to many hundreds of years ago, right? And the planetary positions actually shift slightly because we are not in a stable position, we're not in a fixed position as we travel through the universe. So that's why having a layer that is based on actual positions on the planet, I feel is very useful, and it adds on even more depth to the study that we do and the way that we use Chinese astrology overall. Because I get this question, isn't it? Like, okay, you know, if you are emphasizing, if you're preaching, you're talking about it, you're sharing, you're a practitioner of Chinese metaphysics, why on earth do you need to overlay into Western astrology, right? But this is the reason, okay? So I'll talk more about that in the next sheet, but it is the full moon's position is in the same part of planet Uranus in a particular part of the sky that you can label as Taurus, right? So same thing, right? You can label a particular segment of the universe as dragon. It's the same idea, okay? So, and then this is very unique because Uranus is associated with Aquarius, okay, which is basically the sign, and it's associated overall with period 9. So that's why, again, emphasizing the emphasis here, emphasizing the emphasis on period 9 and the urgency of this year in establishing and giving us the power to and the opportunity to revamp. Look, starting period 9 now, this is what you have, 2024. As in 2024 shows us this is what you have now. So with this, whatever that you have now, you're vibrating at this current level, it is expected that you will create a certain result in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Right? So look at this. If you like it, enhance it more. If you don't like it, if you find that there's still some major blockages or stagnation, then resolve them, unblock and remove those stagnation. That's 2024 Wood Dragon. Right. So then with this, then we have a November full moon which supports us in those activation of the dramatic shifts and the changes. Right. So this is again another month where dramatic shifts and changes are enabled. Right. Because we also have the moon's energy when it reaches its peak there, right, conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is the planet of awakening, they say, right? It's also associated with period 9, associated with the Aquarius sign, and complete up-leveling of energy. So if you want to move from here to here, right? In the Western astrology perspective, you need Uranus, the planet, the energy that will crack and usually suddenly, right? Crack, change, enforce. Something comes, right, where you have opportunity to then rise to the next level of vibration. So that's one of the gifts of planet Uranus. So, and it is in the sign that's called Taurus. Taurus is like a sort of a in between rabbit and also dragon, and it's about, again, matured growth, or the wrapping up of growth, or the finality of growth, because that's when the wood element, after its peak, it goes into kept as a as a raw material for fruition after that, right? So again, it all points the same story, but in a nutshell, the November's full moon will give us the illumination, which means it will trigger the our internal world, right? The way that we feel, mostly from an emotional perspective, so that then we are able to work with the energy of change that's brought in by Uranus overall, and of course the growth energy of water producing wood in the pig. So it is about those dramatic shifts and changes. So I'm sure you're either experiencing it yourself or you've seen it happen with various aspects of your life, right? And of course, with these changes and these alignments, which are usually jolting and sudden, it is all about using these changes to basically fit more with our self values, right? And then of course with the destiny that we want to craft as well, right? Then we look into what is happening from the planetary movements for November in more detail, right? And this is very exciting because Pluto, which is the furthest outermost planet overall, even though it's not a planet from a scientific perspective nowadays, okay, it doesn't matter, right? It is the planet, or as they say, associated with transformation. So it's been in Capricorn for like the past, I think it's like 20 years plus minus, right? And then it's been going in and out of Capricorn, right? Which is the sign associated with planet Saturn, which is about our long-term commitments, right? It's about when we have those long-term commitments, we work towards something that is not only long-term, but when we commit to something like a relationship, right? We have to ensure that the values of the two parties are same. And that's why a long-term commitment in terms of a partnership or marriage comes with that responsibility and the obligation once you commit to it, right? You're not supposed to simply or suka hati, like, I don't want to do anymore, I just change, even though, you know, humans like the easy way out, right? But when you commit to it, it is for the long term, and with this long-term commitment together, whether it's between two parties in a partnership or a marriage, for example, and then they will keep cracking and up-changing, up-level themselves. That's what two people are supposed to do together if they are heading on the same path, right? So keep up-leveling, but with this, it requires transformation. So Pluto, at its highest, deepest level, is that part of our energy being, right? And because it was in Capricorn for many years, and it's been in and out of Capricorn, which means it's been teasing, pushing, cracking, right? And also stirring up all these changes in long-term commitments, okay? So it's been doing that, especially in the past 2 years. But now, right, when November 19 comes along, right, in another 2 weeks or less, it finally leaves the Capricorn sign and never ever going back for another 180 years when it re-enters Aquarius. So Aquarius, like I said, is associated with planet Uranus and also associated with one core energy of period 9, right? So it's been in and out of the sign of Aquarius, especially in the past year or so, right? So that's why we have the period 9 come in. But now that is really going to re-enter Aquarius and completely leave Capricorn, this is the real deal. This is when we are basically now, right, into period 9, no preparation left whatsoever, right? 2024 is a preparation year. A lot of people don't see it that way, right? But I've been talking about it for a very long time now, and for 2024 itself. A preparation, not like a pre-preparation type of thing, but more like a test, right? The karmic results are showing and so on and so forth, right? And then we have the last opportunity, a last chance to make those changes, which are often very deep-seated. And they have a lot of deep repercussions from the past 20 years and so on, of period 8. Okay, so that's why now it is the moment that we really truly enter into period 9 full. That's what it means, right? And then of course if we look into the overall supporting things, right? These are immediate planets. We'll talk about them next, right? So then we know that the masculine principle, Mars, okay, in all of us, right? So that's was in Cancer, which is it's a very soft energy, right? It's very feminine in a way, right? It's about family values, it's about human connections, emotions, and so on, right? So that, of course, now is in Leo, right? But what's interesting is that, okay, November 4th, it enters Leo. Leo is about sun energy, it's about yang energy, right? Which means it's about outward life, which it triggers and helps with the current month of November, right? Because we talk about growth, we talk about preparing and maximizing growth ahead for 2025, right? It's all very outward based. Let's do this, let's focus, let's harness energy, let's work to our max capacity, so on, so and so forth, right? But then, okay, having said that, after that, in anticipation, right, after it goes into Leo for most of this month, it goes retrograde all the way back to Cancer. So, okay, clear? Mars was in Cancer. As of November 4th, it has moved into Leo. After that, it goes into Leo, and then it will retrograde back and forth, back all the way to Cancer in the start of 2025, which means there is still some adjustment going on with our outward masculine energy of strife and achievement and what to do next and so on. Okay, so right, even though we're deeply in period 9, but the year and the months are not there yet, and also because we're in winter, so winter is still preceding spring. Okay, and then at the same time we have these two, right, which are sort of like longer term significant planets. Like Saturn, I mentioned, is about our long term commitments overall, and then the obligations that come with those long term commitments. Okay, so that is in the very last sign, because Pisces is like a different version of the rat and the ox. Okay, right? It actually overlaps into the tiger lah. But in Western astrology, it's considered the last sign, right? And then having two significant planets here, right? In this last sign of Pisces is very significant of an ending, right? With every ending comes a new beginning. Okay, so then they will hover around this last sign of Pisces, right? Basically for Saturn, it will be until next May, and then for Neptune, it will be until next March. After that, they go into Aries, which starts the calendar in terms of the Western astrology cycle, right? Which is basically the spring equinox. Okay, so what it means overall, right, is that we still have a little bit of a period of adjustment here, right? Especially in terms of the crux and the core of this period 9 energy, right? Reflected here. Then if we look into day-to-day information here, that Mercury as the planet, Mars as the planet, and Venus, right, our feminine principle here, tells us, right? So then this will give us the color and the tone of the more, the way that we use our energy on a day-to-day basis, right? Within the main themes that I'm talking about. So for example, Sun, which is our yang, soul, right? The soul progression overall, right? So that, of course, enters Sagittarius. Why I want to highlight that? It enters Sagittarius on November 21st every single year. But what else is with Sagittarius? Mercury, right? So remember, right? All the other planets can be at various points of the universe, and hence we call it various points of the sky. Okay, but when they overlap with the season, for example, this Sagittarius is the season that starts in November 21st onwards, right? It tells another story of the emphasis there. So Mercury, which is our day-to-day energy usage, okay? So that already has started in Sagittarius. I think it was November 2nd or something. Now, then it goes into its retrograde. And Mercury retrograde is, of course, something that is fairly known these days in the astrology circles and overlapping into metaphysics overall, regardless of whether we follow Western astrology or not. Okay? So it's very significant because we are now preparing for the last Mercury retrograde of the year. Okay, and it's going to be in Sagittarius, which is the season that is correlated, right, at least half of the energy to the pig month, the Boar month, right? And again, Mercury can retrograde anywhere, but in this case, it's retrograding in the same sign as our soul path overall. So that's what it means in general. Now, Venus, on the other hand, is taking care of business. Venus is about heart energy, it's about our value system, and with this heart energy and our value system is when we can truly connect to other people, right? Whether other people, other beings, and so on, right? This is taking care of business, right? What interrelationships, what relationship dynamics need to be really ironed out for the long term, because that's what Capricorn and Saturn is all about. That is what Venus is busy doing during this time. Okay? And then our mental chatter, mental talk, our evaluation skills, right, is looking about the future. That's what Mercury in Sagittarius means, right? But we know that come towards the end of the month, it will relook. It has to go like, okay, wait, let me examine that further. Let's work out more of the details. So that's what we have in terms of the layering of the energy for November itself, yeah? And Mercury retrograde, speaking about it. So it's in Sagittarius. Of course, now the theme, right, based on all this combined knowledge together, right, is for planning for 2025, right? It's tweaking for period 9. That's where we are with the Mercury retrograde, which prior to its retrograde period, right, before 26, from now up to November 26, we started a few days ago, in fact, that's what we need to do. We need to plan for the future. Then when we get to the retrograde period, we have to relook at a deeper level and reassess. That's what it means. And because it's traveling with the sun, like I said just now, so it's about what we want to do, what we want to achieve, what our soul would like to travel on and shape its path, okay? And then because the masculine principle is also, at least for the month of November, that is, right, in the sign of the same sign that contains the sun, which is Leo. Right, so that's why action for outward self, right, will complete the energy pattern for November per se, in context of the Mercury retrograde. So that's why when we split into timeline segments, so this one I can offer you as an overall guideline of how to work with the energies as they shift a little bit throughout the whole month. Of course, the dominant energy, we have that, right, maximize growth and so on and so forth, right, so that we basically are able to be in the best position starting off on the starting blocks for February of 2025, okay? So the first portion, about the first 9 days or so, starting today, right, this is about, again, maximizing those efforts, right? What projects have you started, okay? And if you have not started, then, okay, that's something to think about, but especially with the ones that already have some seeding to it, right? What have you been doing to make sure that they are growing? Make sure that they reach a particular direction, right? So if you are wanting to start a new career, for example, what is the career? Hopefully you've already chosen it. If you have not decided yet, then it doesn't apply, okay? If you've decided and you're not done anything yet, then remember to kickstart a lot and put in maximum effort in November. So if, like, for example, you want to grow your social media presence, right? So if not done it, you know at least your objective is there, then of course you have to put in the work and maximize it, right? Develop and grow. And of course, if you have already developed project A, B, C, D, E, all together, right? Maybe they're all at different paths, at different stages, then make sure you put in effort into each and every one, because wood, right, is also about diversification. And then this diversification is overlapping now with the branching out sideways of side lateral exploration, right, which is overlapping now in the end of the year, and then will be the theme for 2025 per se, right? And overall, of course, maximize productivity, right? Because that will be something very useful to give you a head start for 2025. Then you talk about the second part of the month, roughly, right? November 17 to November 26, thereabouts, right? So this is where the energy of the conjunction of planet Uranus in Taurus with the heightened emotions and the inner world triggers of the mid-November full moon, okay? So then this is the period where it is most likely you're going to see some shakeups. Okay, some of it, of course, on the grander world perspective, we already see that, right? And then, of course, this is also the opportunity to align or realign or change overall, right, with the purpose of up-leveling overall, right? Up-leveling can be seen in many, many different contexts. But if you look at the core root energy, it is a realignment to values, a realignment to who we truly are, if we are able to accept it, and who we truly want to be, right, if we're still working on it, on the different levels and layers. And then at the same time, it's also up-leveling to honor ourselves better, overall, right? If you're just leveling up and you're just shaking and breaking without that core, then of course, yes, you can ride on the energy, but it will not be the maximum, the most optimal overall, right? So that's why we always look into the depths when it comes to using astrology and any other Chinese metaphysics overall. Then in the last portion of the month, now this will overlap into December, into the first week of December at least, right? But now we keep it in November, right? So the last portion of it will be from the retrograde of Mercury onwards up to the end of the month, right? So retrograde in perspective of where we want to go and the plans that we have already for 2025 and also beyond. Okay, so during retrograde, of course, it's good to use the opportunity to basically review, right, or look deeper, right, or look into more details, right, or more detailed analysis, so that then the growth effort that we want to go, and this is part of growth, because part of growth is also in the trimming of it, in the in the editing process also. So that's what is going to be enabled. And the energy of the end month of November is more suitable for that. So if we follow it, then it will be working with the energies. If not, then of course we will, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In some cases, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right? Remember, but it's all for a good reason. It's all for a good, good product, all right? A good result at the end of the day. Okay, so 3 segments roughly, just overall guide. Okay. In the meantime, quick hello to Karen. Hi, Karen. To Peggy is with us as well. James Leo, I think you are in Singapore, right? I believe, right? And then of course Benedict Benz as well, and Sunita Bishan. Okay, with me on this page. I always forget to check the ST page. So today, now that I remember, I will click into it also in case people have said hi there as well. Yeah. So now that is the wrap for the forecast per se. Now remember, 3 reminders here. Finish strong, right? Especially for November, don't waste it. Okay, of course, finish strong for the rest of the year also. But starting this month, November, and November being the most crucial out of the 3, they are each very different, as in November, December, and January, and very crucial overall. Okay, but now we start with November first. Maximize for 2025 in those ways that I mentioned. And this one also very important, right? The energy also shows that there are a lot of changes that we're supposed to make if we want to break up our energy, free it up level it. Okay, but we must confront and take care of what is unavoidable, right? I'm using this as reassurance for my own happenings with our home stuff, right? This particular week, which has been like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? Project A, B, C, D, E, right? But at the same time, I need to look at project home fix, right? So yes, right? But because it's unavoidable, okay, that's what that's what November also will enhance, right, and also activate. Okay, so that's that for now. So remember, we are in the first month of the winter season, a very powerful month of opportunity. So ideally, we want to grow it into this visual of this beautiful image that you hear, that you see, right? So we've got the water, we've got the run here, the pig, right? And then we've got the sun there, right? Right, shining bright, and can you see the reflection, right? So I, of course, had the AI purposely come up with this. There's the Jia wood here, and then of course there's all the beautiful Yi wood that's all along lah. Okay, so that's what we want to paint ahead for 2025, because in the year itself, right, it doesn't come like that, right? So we have to do what we can to start ahead and to basically maximize what we can in preparation for 2025. Right? Speaking of which, of course, this is the season that it is always conducive if you're looking for further direction, if you're looking for further guidance, right? Then of course, this is the season to get your Bazi readings, right? And then for me, I've been sharing and been coaching clients on a different version of Bazi, right? So I call it Bazi Premium because it is working with your Bazi at, yes, the deepest level. So if you come to me and you subscribe to this service, you will get that main, most fundamental advice, right? On what you're supposed to be doing, right? And what you're supposed to really learn to break through to your best in the process of that. So of course, it depends on where you are at that stage. So that's part of the any basic parts of first time reading with me, right? Then of course there's the annual reading, which is also a very popular style. And then for this emphasis, of course, it works with the annual reading after we've already worked on the grand plan, or you have a overall strategy on how to break through the best to the client's need per se. Then we look into the annual energy in the context, of course, of the 10-year luck pillar, and then we see where that is and what that year brings in terms of opportunities for either learning lessons, challenges that need to be understood in terms of how to not only manage those challenges, but how to and what to learn from at the end of the day with that experience, right? And then, of course, when that is done sufficiently, like I was mentioning, everything becomes an opportunity, right? Then we will zoom into the sectors of the home. Remember, this is not a feng shui full audit or analysis, but we know, of course, that certain sectors based on the animal sign, location, and so on, that will be containing a particular energy type, whether it's in the animal sign location or in the gua, right? In terms of the system, the flying stars way of looking into things, right? And then because of that, then we will tap into these as little boosts to bring the next stage, right? What is the next step for me, right? So I will work with the client to see, okay, let's try doing an activation in this particular sector because the stars here are such and such and such, and then this energy or the elements and the animal sign itself brings this to you in your particular chart. So it is very targeted that way, right? And then of course I have two versions of it. One of it gives a kickstart to the year, the standard one, and then one of it has the kickstart to the year, and then after that is a follow through, right, for the second half of the year as well. So I call it Parts of Premium. If this calls out to you, then of course this is the season to do it. So normally I just offer it one time per year, as in like over a few months of the end of the year and in the beginning of the year, and then that's it. Because if you don't jump on board, then you can probably just do without the activations, or you can do your own activations, or you can just have the parts without the annual feng shui involved and so on. Okay, so something for you to consider. Now's the time to subscribe. The only thing has to be clear that if you are going to subscribe today, tonight, or ensuing around this Facebook Live, then I will only be able to get to you after the first week of December, right? Because my slots are full now, right? And then of course we've got the Soul's Journey Egypt coming up next week also. Okay, just to be clear, right? If you have not already done it, which a bunch of people have, of course my existing clients have also signed on board for 2025. Okay, so that's an option, okay, for you to consider, right? So thank you so much, everyone. Right, that's a wrap to a very, very powerful November, existing within a very powerful winter season to come, existing within a very, very powerful, strong, and opportunistic 2024 Wood Dragon year overall, right? Okay, let me see here the Soleil page. I just want to make sure that if anyone said hi, I just want to say hi back. Okay, tonight, don't have. Okay, so it's okay. So thank you so much, right, for joining me on the different pages that we have, right? On Jesse's page, I see a lot of names there, right? And thank you, right? No other new comments yet, right? Okay, so time to wrap up. If you've joined me on my page, which I'm just going to go through back real quick, I appreciate it. And then, like I said, if you can actually follow me officially on the page, I will be much appreciative of that also, right? If you can officially follow me on the Kong Yu public figure page, that would be much appreciated. Okay, so thank you so much. Have a wonderful, productive, remember, maximize. If you've been listening to me from the beginning of this, and if you do, right, post live, yes, okay, do what you can to really work on the energies and to maximize your productivity for this whole month, because it's really going to give you an advantage in a disadvantaged overall 2025 wood snake year. Right? You're welcome, Tammy, right? And everyone else that has joined me so much, thank you. It is a wrap, okay, for this Facebook Live. Okay, thank you, and have a wonderful, productive November ahead. Right? Thanks, Benedict. Everyone, bye-bye.